everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. We made it to Friday. Good morning. I'm going to do something I don't often do. I'm going to use our wonderful platform of ours to share my pride that I had yesterday.
Oh, yes,
I have
this is a great story. Please do it.
Not since I had my child have I been more proud, CC and Nick, than yesterday when my 4-year-old starred in the pre-K production of I'm Hungry.
She was a star?
She was a star. A pufferfish was born, can I just tell you. Thank you to the wonderful school and my teachers,
it was great.
Miss Bria, Miss
The
Giselle.
reviews, the New York Times review this morning
they were
gave
solid.
it 5 stars.
Yeah, it was a late night.
helped out
with
with
the costume. I mean,
team effort.
Puffy eyes this morning because we were up all night celebrating.
Congrats to her. Congrats to the entire
Wolfeld-Goss family.
Yes,
we've been having a wonderful time celebrating. Now we can get into some.
Let's do it.
We can start with other things that are going on. I had my say. Don't make plans Saturday night. Don't go see a Broadway show. Don't go and see the second version of this show. The NBA has already made them for you. Game 3 between the Celtics and the LeBrons from Cleveland. Vegas has confidence in Cleveland, listing them as 6.5-point favorites. And the Celtics have struggled on the road this postseason, going 1-4. Here's what Ty Lue had to say about being down in the series.
We know what it takes. I mean, they won 2 games on their home floor. They've been playing well all playoffs. They're 9-0 on their floor. So, you know, we understand that. But, you know, now we got to come home and take care of our business on our home floor.
The stage is set for, you know, all of us to do something spectacular. Why not come out and play hard? You know, everybody's saying we're playing with house money anyway. So why not come out, you know, with the energy level that we need and try to do something special.
All right, so let's for a second not worry about what the Celtics record is on the road, CC, and let's not worry about how hungry the Cavs probably are right now. How impressive has this Boston run been so far?
It's been very impressive. If you look at what they did, they struggled the first round of the playoffs, but it's been the tale of 2 teams, and that's the team that plays at home and the team that played on the road. Now, the most impressive thing that they've done, knowing that their 2 top players, in Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, aren't in the lineup, it is develop younger players. When you talk about Tatum and Brown and how they're playing at the highest level, now being in the Eastern Conference Final, and the response that they're getting from a rookie and a second-year player, those are the things that are really, really impressive. Even though they did beat a Philadelphia team, there's probably more talented, and it seemed like was more ready for prime time. If you pick the teams in the East, no one picked the Celtics. If they were going to represent the Eastern Conference in the finals, there were teams. The hot new team was Philadelphia. I would have picked Philadelphia to beat Cleveland to go to the finals. But the development of the young players is very impressive, and the win over the 76ers was very impressive.
Well, and if we remove the Celtics from this postseason and look at the 10 series that have been played without the Boston Celtics involved, the team with the best individual player has won all of them except one. 9-1. The one loss being Russ's Oklahoma City Thunder to the Utah Jazz. When it gets to the NBA playoffs, especially the early rounds, it's usually as simple as which team's got the best guy, he's going to win. Well, the Celtics beat Giannis. He was the best player in that series. They beat Simmons and Embiid. Going into that series, you would say they had the 2 best players. And now they're up 2-0. Not only the best player in the series, but the best player in the world. Like, the way they've done it from a team standpoint, where you don't have a go-to guy, you don't have really anyone on the team. I know Horford's been excellent for them, but he doesn't have any high-level playoff success that they can lean on as far as here's how you handle being up in the conference semifinals, up in the conference finals. Like, to do that, and with a coach who, by the way, doesn't have high-level playoff success. He obviously has collegiate success. They went on the run last year, but everyone involved in this team is young. Everyone involved in this team is inexperienced, and everyone involved in this team goes into it from a legitimate underdog standpoint, where they were nearly a pick-em in round 1 against the 7-seed Bucks and have been a heavy underdog in each series since then.
I would say, and I know you both say oftentimes it's the players who go out there and shoot, but if you had to pick an MVP on this team, there are a lot of people who would say it's Brad Stevens. They would say he's kept their confidence level up, he's kept their expectations at a reasonable level, he's kept their anxiety, if you will, over the big playoff stage to a sort of a regular level. I wonder what you think about Brad Stevens being the superstar on this team.
Yeah, Brad Stevens has done well, but you still, as a coach, and every coach I ever played with, as brilliant as they were, none of them could get a catch, shoot, nor dribble. Like, you can say whatever, the X's and O's, but you get on the court, they move. So you got to give the players credit. They're very, very talented. Coach comes up with a game plan, but he can't shoot the ball. He can't execute. He's not playing defense. He's not in the pressure situation. His job, once he gets to the game, it's up to the player. His job is pretty much done. He's calling plays, but you have to give these players credit. Nick talked about it. No series they've been in where they had the best player. They've won those series and have halfway to winning this series against LeBron. So, yes, you give the coach credit, but the coach is not playing. And the reason why I believe that now in the NBA, if you have the dominant player, you're not guaranteed to win, it's because we have these super teams and we have the three-point line. If you have the three-point line and guys can shoot, it negates some of the other talent.
And the super team certainly if some people might say Harden's the best player in the Warriors, most people probably say Durant, but Harden's going to win the MVP. But they have such overwhelming talent that they can negate it. The Celtics might one day be a super team, but they're not yet, right?
Yes.
They're not. And the Celtics, when Hayward and Kyrie get back, will be able to exploit you enormously from the three-point line, but right now, that isn't how they're beating you. They're beating you with the point you've been making, which is the half-court defense.
Yes.
They're not letting Cleveland get out in transition, and they are strangling you in the half-court. But that is only half the game. And the other half is, why has the offense been more effective in the first round of the playoffs than it was the regular season? More effective in the second round than the first round, and more effective in the conference finals in the second round. It's the players have, I'm going to use two words, patience and belief. They will be patient saying, offense didn't come to me this quarter. Didn't come to me in the second quarter either. I have a belief it will come to me in the third quarter or in the fourth quarter, which is why one of the reasons, Jenna, I think people are going to point out Brad Stevens, and smartly so, is who has been the best player? Oh, it was Jason Tatum. But then it was Jaylen Brown. Well, Horford's been really consistent. Well, Terry Rozier ate up Eric Bledsoe. Like, there's a handful of guys you could pick because all of them have had their moments. All of them have had their stretches of 3 or 4 games where they look like the best guy when it's just been a collective team effort.
And the patience and the belief all sort of lends itself to the mental advantage that they seem to have in these games. Jaylen Brown came in and said, we're basically playing with house money. What's your reaction to that, CC?
I don't believe that. I don't believe that they believe that. They would be very disappointed if they lose this series to Cleveland. There's no house money. They got 2 wins now. No, that is just a young guy just answering a question, because Boston, their fan base, their organization. You know who he also said in the soundbite, we also have a chance to do something spectacular. That's what the coach told him. And that's the message to the team. We could be the team to defeat LeBron James, stop him from going to 8 consecutive finals, and do something special. So you don't think about doing something special and I'm playing with house money. You have to make up your mind. And I believe that the Celtics, they're going for it. They believe they're a good enough team to be in the NBA Finals.
I think that once they beat Philly, there was maybe a day or two where it did feel like, man, we're back in the conference finals. We traded away IT. Crowder's been gone. Bradley's gone. Kyrie's not here. Hayward's not here. We're back in the conference finals. There's a moment where I do think they felt like we got nothing to lose. But C's point about now that you're up 2-0, the narratives can flip real quick. Just like the narrative about Philadelphia when they had won 20 out of 21 is, oh, my God. The process is 2 years ahead of schedule. Then they lose to Boston, and we start saying, wait. Is Philly?
Is he the right coach?
Is he the right coach? Can Ben Simmons be a productive
these two
playoff
coexist?
Player? Right, it can flip real quick. Boston right now has a bit of the feel Philly had when they had won 20 of 21. They're playing their best basketball of the year at the best exact time. But if that flips and all of a sudden you go from beating the Sixers in 5 up 2-0 on the Cavs to losing 4 of 5, to losing theoretically either 4 in a row or a Game 7 at home, the only way they can lose that series, then the narrative can flip real quick.
And if they become a super team, when Gordon doesn't have any playoff success. Kyrie's only got 1 success. That's with LeBron. And now these younger players have that bad mark to finish the playoffs. So, yeah, people like to say, oh, house money, but is it real? In this situation, it's not real. Maybe before the series, it was real. But up 2-0, no, it's not real.
All right, that's that Game 3 we previewed. We'll preview the other one coming up next. Can the Warriors win without Steph Curry being awesome? That's next on First Things First. All right. The Western Conference Finals continues this weekend. The series shifts to the Bay Area. In the first two games, Steph Curry has been held to human as opposed to superhuman, the superhuman who won 2 MVPs. Steph is just 2 of 13 from beyond the arc so far this series. Here's the good news, though. He's shooting 50% from 3 in his 2 home playoff games this year. So, Nick Wright, I ask you, are the Warriors mortal if Curry continues to struggle?
Yes. Listen, the Warriors transform from historical juggernaut to championship contender if Steph Curry goes from league MVP level player to good starting point guard. Like, that's the one-to-one transformation. Yeah, I mean, if Steph Curry is going to average less than 20 points a game in this series, then yeah, they can get got. Like, to me, there's no question about that. They don't have enough offense other than Steph to be an overwhelming favorite if he's average, or if he's not Steph Curry average, but NBA point guard average. They could win still because Durant and Clay and Draymond can be that good.
They won game 1.
They won average. Exactly right. And so they obviously could still win. But, yeah, I mean, at no point when I've done the math on the Warriors the last few years have I baked into it, well, what if Steph isn't good? Steph's always good. Like, I know he's had some bad moments in the NBA Finals, but even those, when you look at him, I mean, he still averaged 20-plus points. He still usually shoots a decent percentage. Like, Steph Curry's career playoff, when people say he struggles, see, his career playoff numbers are almost identical to Kobe's career playoff numbers, and nobody ever said Kobe was struggling. It's just he hasn't had those 45 points, 11 three-pointer NBA Finals games, and now the start of this Western Conference Finals has been subpar for him.
Yeah, of the final other 3 teams that are left, Steph can't struggle against the Rockets. He could struggle against Boston. They could still beat Boston. He could struggle against the Cavs. They would still beat the Cavs. It's the Houston have been the best team in the NBA, and because of the players they added last year and what they're doing, the style for which they're playing, no, he can't afford to play bad. And we've seen that in game number 1 where Durant went off, Steph struggled, they were able to win. But Houston played awful, and we saw in game 2, now Houston played spectacular. Durant was spectacular, but the difference in this game was, especially without Clay, because now we only have the question about Steph. It's, can they afford to both their guards not to play well? And that's no, because if Steph had played the way he did and Clay had played a normal Clay game, they might have won game number 2, or we wouldn't be having this question. So they have the ability that one of the star players can help cover for the other player. But for me, it's just like when Steph was out of the lineup. I told you their offense doesn't run. Yeah. Steph is their primary ball handler. And what he does to the defense when he's making shots at 27 to 30 feet and how you're less apt to switch off on him. We saw the center, Nene guarding him out on the perimeter. Yeah. You'll keep doing things like that if Steph keeps shooting like this, and his inability to be able to get his other teammates open because he's not unconscious. Right. When Steph is unconscious, watch the defense, how they pick him up right across half court. Yes. And it opens up the rest of the court for his teammates.
To build on, listen, Steph's offense when he's on is infectious. When Steph is on, Draymond's offense is better, Iguodala's offense is better, Clay and KD's offense is better. KD, as brilliant as he's been in these first 2 games, his offense is not infectious. It is self-contained.
We saw that.
He's got 75 points and 1 assist. We also saw in this. The Warriors are averaging 50 fewer passes in the Western Conference Finals than they did over the course of the regular season. They're averaging 10 fewer potential assists in the Western Conference Finals than the regular season. What does that mean? It's when Steph is the center point of the offense, it is ball movement, it is cutting, it is everyone getting involved. When KD is the center point of the offense, and this, I want to be clear, this is not a knock on KD. KD is as good of a scorer as we've seen, but when he's the center point of the offense, it looks...
He don't need help. He don't need a pick. Right. He don't need a brush screen. He don't need anything. All you have to do is give him the ball, move out of the way, and within 5 seconds, he can put the ball in the hoop.
Doesn't it look like this was the Rockets' game plan coming in? Just target Steph, stop Steph on offense and defense, just go after him, let KD do his thing. How much of that is
I mean, they have so many weapons. It's just that you can't let 2 of them score 30 points or 25 to 30 points. And how do you do that? It's hard just to concentrate on one player. Now, Steph, from a defensive standpoint, Nick has talked about how they're hunting him up on the screens. All of the elite players, they're making him work. They make Clay work because Houston is that effective offensively. And you see that KD, no one say anything about KD. KD's guarding Harden. So he's running a lot more, which has also affected his rebounding because he's further away from the bucket. So I wouldn't say that their game plan is we're going to stop Steph. It's like we got to try to hold one of these stars down, and Steph or Clay are more likely to be
That's the thing is, there's a game plan. It's not always effective. There's a way, we've seen it done, that you can, even when Steph is on, you can mute some of his effectiveness. It takes enormous dedication. It takes smart defenders. It takes the refs to let you play a little more physical. There is no game plan to slow down KD. What's the game plan? Find a guy as tall as him, as athletic as him, who can stay with him on the perimeter. That guy doesn't currently exist in the NBA. Like, what's the game plan? Go import Giannis from Milwaukee and see if his length, like, there are only 2 or 3 guys in the league that have a shot at when KD's locked in, slowing him down. So I think it was smart by Houston to say, if we go into it and say, our entire game plan is about slowing down Kevin Durant, we could execute it perfectly, and he could still beat us. If it's one of the nights where his mid-range shot is falling, there is no game plan for it. If our game plan's about we are not going to let Steph get going, we've seen Cleveland execute that game plan. We've seen Oklahoma City a couple years ago. Now, granted, they had KD, execute that game plan. Like, there's a way to do that. I don't know if there's a way to do the other.
As long as Steph is in the NBA, the game plan will always be, and it's easier done in the playoffs, play him very, very physical, put him on a very effective offensive player, and set as many screens on him as possible. And it's the same thing they have with Kyrie when he's in the lineup.
Yep.
You do the same thing. So it's not like everyone in the NBA has this plan. If you are a guard and you're undersized a little bit, that's going to be the game plan going against you defensively.
But how much of this is him not finding a shot, him not being in rhythm, him having his own offensive problems, and how much of it is because of what Houston is doing to him?
I think it's both. Like, I want to give the Rockets.
We haven't seen him struggle like this in
No,
the
not
last
in these
two
playoffs,
series.
certainly not against the Pelicans.
Someone's doing something right.
Right. I want to give the Rockets credit. I think it's not only their game plan, but it's also, Sia alluded to it there, there's nowhere to hide on Houston's offense.
No.
Like, against the Pelicans, you can just try to get Steph matched up against either Etuan Moore or whomever that 5th guy is. Rondo, sure. A guy that's not an offensive threat. Against most teams in the league, if they would have, instead of been playing, pick another team. If they're playing the Blazers, any team in the league, almost any team, is not going to have 5 offensive threats out there. When the Rockets play small and when P.J. Tucker's hitting shots or Ariza's hitting shots, there's nowhere to hide him. There's nowhere you can obviously.
And that's why they couldn't beat the Cavs in 2016, because he was supposed to guard J.R., and J.R. played big in that series.
All right, we're going to take a break. Speaking of J.R., J.R. thinks he's got the answer to the Cavs' problems. Let's hear it from him next on First Things First. Interesting answer. Yesterday, the Bucks officially hired Mike Budenholzer as the head coach. Coach Bud spent the last 5 seasons as head coach of the Hawks after 18 seasons with the Spurs under Greg Popovich. Nick, what do you think of this hire?
I like this hire. I like it almost as much as one of our great staff members, Deontay, will, because when you add Mike Budenholzer, who I believe is one of the 10 best coaches in the NBA, there will no longer be any buts with Giannis. I think Giannis is an MVP caliber player. He has Chris Middleton as a running mate. They got a couple good point guards, and now they don't have a deficit at head coach. The Bucks should be one of the 4 best teams in the East next year and a tough second round out. That's my level of expectation now.
Yeah, I don't have a rating system. I do believe he's a good coach, and I know it will benefit Giannis. As a star player, you want to see how high the ceiling is for Giannis. I believe that Mike pushes him there, and they really have a nice roster, not knowing what's going to happen in Philadelphia. They're going to add a free agent, knowing that Boston's going to reload next year. Keep your eyes on Milwaukee.
Absolutely.
All right, on Wednesday, the Phoenix Suns landed the #1 pick in the draft lottery. Many are expecting them to decide between Arizona center DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic, who currently plays overseas for Real Madrid. However, yesterday, Doncic said he has yet to decide if he'll definitely go to the NBA next season. It's smoke, and it's also mirrors. Nick, what do you make of the situation?
He don't want to play for the Kings. I mean, that's what I make of this situation. The Kings have the #2 pick, while I believe that the Suns would take Doncic at number 1. Most people believe they'd take DeAndre Ayton out of their backyard from the University of Arizona at number 1. But Doncic's not staying over in Europe. The top-paid players in that league make $3 to $3.5 million. Number 1 or number 2 pick of the draft is going to make north of $7 million. I think it's a bluff, and I think it's trying to prevent the Kings from drafting him.
Yeah, I believe that Doncic is on the board for Phoenix to draft, because I believe that also the rumors that Capella will be offered the max deal. He'll already have a center, so why take the center from Arizona when you have Capella there? You take Doncic, who the coach has experience with. I believe he'll come in the NBA. I hope that he comes in the NBA, because that's where the best players in the world play.
All right, yesterday the NBA Combine got underway in Chicago. All 30 NBA teams are there, getting an up-and-close look at this year's prospects. Duke's Grayson Allen helped himself royally by posting a 40-inch vertical, doing well on the all-athletic testing. Nick, would you take Grayson Allen in the first round?
I mean, maybe at the tail end of it. This guy, his sophomore year at Duke, coming off the great performance in the title game his freshman year, looked like he could be an NBA lottery pick. But the last 2 years at Duke, he has not. He has not comported himself like an NBA lottery pick either. So a good athlete, I'm sure a surprising athlete to some, but no, I mean, he's not worth a mid or even high first-round pick.
Yeah, I want to see how good of a defender he is, because being that good of an athlete should make you a very good defender. I haven't seen that out of him. There's other things that I've seen that I have question marks about, but his basketball skill, I believe he is an NBA player. As far as a first-rounder, I believe with him, it's going to be about fit and culture. He needs a lot of big brothers to put their hand around him and be able to protect him, because he does any of that nonsense he did in college, he's going to get crushed.
49ers cornerback Richard Sherman jogged on a field Wednesday. Normally not news unless you're coming off a torn Achilles last year. Otherwise, you jogged on a field. Sherman has said he expects to be ready for training camp. CC, how much can Sherman help out the Niners this season?
I mean, he can really help him, but as an aging player with an Achilles is something I'm leery of. I hope he gets through training camp in the first month of the season where he's able to be healthy, to make a contribution as they try to make a playoff run, but they need his veteran leadership. They're weak at the corner, and I believe he's an addition to a great addition to that locker room, but I'm concerned about the Achilles.
Well, it's funny this news comes out because yesterday off the air we were actually talking about Richard Sherman and the Achilles. I just want to ask you, given when he suffered the injury, is jogging now about, would you say he's on track rehab-wise, ahead of where you thought he'd be, behind of where you thought he'd be? Like, how does this news resonate with you in that regard?
It's a long injury. It's a long recovery, and right now we're still about 2 months away from training camp, and he's saying, I'm just now jogging. What about running and stopping? What about changing direction? He plays defensive back. You know, that to me is one of the worst positions to be recovering from an Achilles.
All right, the Giants took Saquon Barkley with the 2nd overall pick. That was the highest a running back was drafted since Reggie Bush was picked 2nd back in 2006. Saquon's former college teammate, Penn State quarterback Trace McSorley, he says that Saquon is like Barry Sanders or Bo Jackson. CeCe, what are reasonable expectations for Saquon's rookie season?
Who's the guy that said that?
Trace McSorley, their quarterback.
Penn State quarterback. Go ahead.
Does he know anything about football, like history? Does he?
Well, I'm glad you're bringing up football history, but go ahead. Because I don't know how much he knows about Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders, I know he doesn't know about Bo Jackson. Do you guys know Bo Jackson had less than 3,000 yards rushing in the NFL?
Mm-hmm. Only had one 1,000-yard from scrimmage season.
Like, that's it. So I don't know if he was trying to help his buddy.
Maybe he meant from a marketing standpoint. Probably from marketing.
He's going to play like Barry Sanders and be marketed like Bo Jackson?
Well, listen, the Bear, you mentioned Bo. I just want to let the young people of America who know Barry Sanders as a guy who retired too early, a guy who probably would have broken the NFL rushing record. I just want to let them know about what Barry Sanders was coming out of Oklahoma State. Barry Sanders, his final, not his career, his last year at Oklahoma State, had 2,600 yards and 37 touchdowns. Let me say that again. In 1 year, and he wasn't playing in some small school, he was playing in a big-time school, 2,600 yards and 37 touchdowns. In his NFL career, he averaged exactly 100 yards rushing a game. An average season for Barry Sanders was 1,600 yards rushing. Forget what he did catching the football. So I love historical comparisons. There are a few no-goes in my world. Nobody gets to be compared to that guy. The Bo Jackson thing, fine, whatever. Like, that's a sad story because what happened with his hip C, because I think people think he could have turned into a really dynamic long-term pro. But Barry Sanders is in a class far and away by himself.
Yes, I'm just humored by all the interviews. We get these sound bites of all these players and everything, and this lets me know they don't know anything. For one, Bo Jackson was not a great pro player. Now, he might have been a great pro prospect, but he was not a great pro player. And Barry Sanders, there is no one. Of the 26 running backs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, there is no running back in the Hall of Fame like Barry Sanders, like his style. There is no running back. So at least give me some guys that give me someone that's something obtainable.
You give me someone that's.
I'm not going to do that because I would say I'm not going to do it because it's just not fair.
Then don't do guys. How about yardage? Like, what do you expect from him in his first year? Yardage-wise,
1,200 yards.
1,200. Okay.
500 yards passing, receiving.
Okay.
And by the way, just for 1,200 yards, people are like, wow, that'd be a really good year. Just so people understand, when I say Barry averaged 100 yards a game, 1,200 yards is 75 yards a game. Like, Barry is a different type of cat from the last day he was at Oklahoma State to the last day.
But it's safe to say you both think Saquon is going to do big things.
I think Saquon's going to be somewhere on the spectrum between Bo and Barry. The problem is that spectrum
right
is
now,
wider
Trace
than
is at home
room.
going, don't. Why did I say that?
He was trying to give his guys some props.
All right, on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Let's talk some basketball. The finals, the one where the joke, it's the Celtics versus LeBron's. But are we really joking? In Game 2, LeBron scored 42 points and 12 assists. The rest of the players on his team, considerably less, including a whopping 0 points from J.R. Smith. Let me just look at my stat line again. 0. J.R. had some interesting comments yesterday. Take a listen.
We're making Bron play hero ball, which is tough to do, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals. We gotta help him. And with that said, we have to give him an opportunity for us to make him feel confident to give us the ball so we can make the right plays. So we got to help him and he got to help us.
All right, besides play and score points, what do the rest of the Cavs need to do to help LeBron
Play
win the
defense,
game?
man.
Okay.
LeBron can carry you offensively. LeBron can do enough. He can be an offense unto himself as far as the points he scores and the points he creates via how many Kevin Love highlights have we shown these playoffs in Butt First where Kevin Love's catching a ball at the rim via an out-of-bounds play or an out-of-timeout play via LeBron James pass? How many times have we seen Kyle Korver coming off a pin down and LeBron puts it directly in the shooting pocket for him where he can rise up from three? LeBron can take care of, I believe, the offensive load at home against the Celtics, even against a great Celtics defense. What he needs from his teammates is some attention to detail, commitment, and most importantly, effort on the defensive side of the ball. Like, nobody can be a defense unto themselves, particularly someone that's not a rim defender, LeBron isn't, and someone who's going to be exerting that much energy on offense. He needs his teammates to lock in defensively as they actually oddly did in round one and have not since then.
Yeah, LeBron needs to lock in defensively too. Like, he's not absent of that comment.
Sure.
They need to play better team defense. There was a time where there was a pass out to a perimeter, Rozier, and Kevin Love and LeBron both looked at each other compared to one of them running to the three-point line. Now, the problem is they've been doing this for 6 months.
Yeah, it's worked.
Over these next two games, even if they win these next two games, like, I'm not going to be fooled. It's a bad team. They got bad body language. They don't like being with each other. They don't like playing with each other, and you can see it on the court. JR comes in the game. They run an out-of-bounds play. JR is open. LeBron doesn't throw him the ball, and JR proceeds to pout the rest of the game, not play defense. And that's just not a sign of a great team. So it's not, to me, I think they'll be enthusiastic. I think that they'll get at least one win these next two games, but I'm still not going to be fooled. It's a bad basketball team, all right? They don't like being together. You can see that compared to the other groups that I've seen with LeBron. And the backcourt, man, they got to be able to support LeBron. George Hill and JR. Forget about everyone else. We can make this specific. Forget about his teammates. The backcourt, they have to be able to play. And JR, with the one doing the interview, he's mostly responsible for that.
You talked about defense. I mean, they have the manpower to just all of a sudden turn it on. You're not going to ask Kyle Korver all of a sudden, hey, can you be stellar on defense?
I'm not asking for them to all of a sudden be a great defense. I'm not even asking them to all of a sudden be an above-average defense. I'm asking them to not look as if they're 5 guys who are standing on the side at the park waiting for the game to end and then say, you want to run, and just picking it up together. While you're right, Korver and Love don't have the physical tools to be great defenders. That's why it has to be a team defense as a unit working together. And Cece's right. Like, we've seen a bad defense throughout the regular season. What we have also seen is that defense was buttressed by a top 5 offense. Typically, what we saw in round 1, when the offense wasn't there, they at least for spurts for a quarter or a quarter and a half could give effort defensively, could lock in defensively. That's why Game 2 was so disappointing. You have a 7-point halftime lead. You need 2 quarters of good defense. LeBron's going to carry you offensively in the second half, and you steal home court advantage from Boston. And I think the second half in Game 2 was some of the worst defense they played all year.
Yeah, I think the team thinks a lot like you. Just like you said, we got a 7-point lead. We got to play some defense. LeBron's going to carry us offensively. I think that's a bad mentality. No guy can carry a team in the NBA anymore. All right, there's too much firepower. The way they play defense and everything, one guy can be negated. And you run out of energy. If LeBron goes for 20, 22 in the first quarter, it's hard to maintain that level for 4 quarters. And we've seen it with all the stars. They might have that big quarter, which might lead them to a 30 to 40-point game, but it's hard for them to go beyond that from an energy standpoint.
But what you said is so right. It has worked for them. They got here doing that. They got here relying on LeBron. They got here not playing great defense. They got here letting LeBron sort of bail them out. They didn't succeed gloriously in any way.
LeBron's never been successful being the 4th seed, so they got there. They got there, but they limped into the playoffs. All right, they barely got through the series with the Pacers. Now, let's not forget, just because they had the Raptors series, who they've controlled for the last 4 years, but these are the Cavs that we've seen. They were a 4 seed. They barely got through the first round. Had to have a Game 7 spectacular performance to be able to win that. Let's not forget, and now they're down 0-2.
You know what these playoffs, when you include the Raptors series, has made me think a lot about? Those games we saw in person, the Cavs play against the Nets this year. Because they didn't dominate the Nets. And I think they won one that we saw. Where the Cavs have been particularly bad this year is teams that are going to punch you in the face defensively. Now, against great offenses, Toronto, I thought, had I know they had top 5 offense and defense, but if you look at their defense against good teams, it was bad, but their offense maintained. Toronto's style, which is, we're going to basically try to outscore you, Cavs love that. Because the Cavs, if their offense gets going, JR plays better defense. They switch better. They're feeling better about themselves. They talk more. But against a team that's going to take your offense away, then no matter how bad it is, the Nets, they don't seem to have the capability to dominate those games. They don't have the capability to play the way they need to defensively against teams that are good against their offense. And so that's going to be the question here in Cleveland these next 2 games.
I like when you do it. Give me how many points you think LeBron's going to have. You've been right literally every single time.
So for Game 3,
yeah.
I think 34 points, 11 assists, handful of rebounds. Cavs win.
An incredible chance he's going to have 34 points.
JR better be more excited than he was in that interview.
I know he almost fell asleep. They had to wake him up halfway through a sentence. They're like, you're literally still talking.
Saying
you just finished the sentence.
Eyes, Jenna?
I don't know what that means. I think he was just exhausted, just a little sleep the night before, probably. Coming up, are you afraid you haven't seen enough Baker Mayfield? Wait just a little while longer. You're going to see a whole lot of him under the microscope. Next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Eric Mangini is with us, dropping culture on us.
Good to see you, brother. How are you?
I am fantastic. Love the energy level here.
We got a lot of good energy.
It is over the top.
Is that where it is?
Yeah.
To say there's pressure on new Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield this season would be a mild understatement. Fair or not, the first overall pick in this year's draft will be expected to resurrect this franchise, and pretty quickly. Nothing says no pressure like a bunch of cameras in your face at all times. The 0-16 Browns have been chosen to appear on the HBO series Hard Knocks this year. Coach, I'll ask you this. How much will that affect head coach Hugh Jackson and what he's trying to do with this team?
Well, it's tough. I would not want to have to do that. When you go into training camp, you're trying to bring together all these new guys and new coaches, and and get to the point where they understand who they're working with, the personalities, trying to get guys comfortable with being with each other and build that chemistry. And it's hard to get people's real selves with cameras on all the time. And I think it's also, there's a lot of hard discussions that go on during training camp, and there's a lot of honesty that has to happen, but you don't want that honesty to be shared with everybody else. You want that to be between you and the player or the group, and I think that makes it difficult as well.
Yeah, I think it's very, very hard to build a team, especially when you have a lot of players that don't have experience and have experience with the camera being around them. It's a very, very young, even franchise because they've changed so much as far as general manager, front office, their overall experience together in the NFL together is short. Not only do they have a quarterback that they're trying to be the face of the franchise, a lot of new players, new coaches. Man, Todd Haley. Like, Todd Haley is a great coach. Can he coach to his best with the camera on him like HBO? I don't think so, because Todd's got language. I mean, this is football. We are not trying to put together, what you think to be football. The way a team is put together, you got a lot of ugly things you have to say to people, a lot of things you have to be frank. And I believe with the overall media, it can help. It can prevent a team from coming together.
Then there's the idea of Baker Mayfield being put out there. Baker Mayfield has his own share of issues when it comes to a lot of cameras around, a lot of attention, and when he's got everyone's undivided attention. He's a little rash, he could be a little cocky, maybe he's not as edited as he should be right now. And I wonder if that plays a role in when you're trying to sort of rein him in, putting him out there on a national stage.
Yeah, there really is no reining in for anybody at this point when you've got 30 people in the building who are documenting everything that you do. And look, remember Baker Mayfield at the Combine said, if there's anybody that can turn around this franchise, it's me. And you make those bold statements. We talked yesterday about the effect of these bold statements of adding pressure to each one of these quarterbacks or young players' situations. And you don't want that. You want them to be focused on the task at hand as opposed to building their brand or worried about how they look or how they're perceived. You just want them worried about football.
And listen, I was in Kansas City when Hard Knocks came to Kansas City. And if you guys remember that season, it was about 10 years ago. The Chiefs that year had drafted 2 D linemen in the 2nd round and 3rd round, Turk McBride and Tank Tyler. One from Tennessee, one from NC State. They were good friends. They're both charismatic guys. And I was very good friends with Turk. To this day, Turk McBride will talk about how he thinks that set a bad tone for his, ended up being not as long as he would have liked, NFL career. They acted as if those two guys, even though they played different positions on the D-line, were in direct competition. They presented it as Tank excelling and overachieving and Turk underachieving, even if that wasn't it, because you have to have storylines. Any television show has to have heroes, and if not villains, you've got to have successes and failures. And so I know we're going to focus on the Baker part of it and the Baker and Tyrod Taylor, but there's other guys. Like, you know what's a very attractive storyline? Denzel Ward, the guy no one thought they were going to take at number 4, struggling his first few weeks of camp. Like, those things, just from a human perspective, I would imagine for the players, it's hard. Now, if you turn into one of the stars, if you get to be, was it the fullback Rex Ryan loved, the John Connor, the Terminator, like that was cool for him. But there's always the yin to that yang or whatever. And so I think that's a real thing for the players involved.
But I think also, if you look at the other side of this, Cleveland wants to get themselves back on a map in some capacity, and this is basically just a soap opera with sports figures involved, and they are doing that. They all want to weave storylines into it, but they want to sort of extend outside of that sports audience and get people a little bit more interested in this Cleveland Browns franchise. And I mean, how many people really knew Jameis Winston before Hard Knocks came to Tampa Bay last year and they got to see a different side of him? Do you think maybe you could help the organization in some way, CC? There's
no place in the NFL that doesn't have notoriety. The teams that have the most notoriety are the ones that win. 5 years ago in Jacksonville, didn't nobody want to go to Jacksonville. They drafted better players. They start winning on the field. Now we're talking about Duval County. Right. They got nicknames. They playing in prime time. Right. It's about winning. It's about having ball players. So every spot, there's only 32 of them, is a prime time spot. But what training camp is supposed to be, it's supposed to be a rarefied atmosphere that you're trying to put 90 people into an environment that everyone can move in the same direction. Now, in training camp, there's a million different agendas. Now, how do the Cleveland Browns put their agenda in the forefront? It becomes harder when you have people inside the organization that aren't about that agenda.
It's going to be interesting, too, to just see Hugh Jackson in that environment. Here's a guy who's won one game in 2 years and somehow has survived. So there must be some reason that ownership feels that he's the right guy to lead the team. So from my perspective, to be able to see some of that will be interesting. And you hear Hugh talk about it. We're proud of the way we coach. We're proud of the things that we do. So this will give him an opportunity to at least show what that looks like. And potentially, if free agents like the environment, it doesn't affect them this year, but maybe next year they'll consider it as a viable destination.
If you were running a team right now, this was your team, what do you tell the young guys?
Yeah, I don't think it's strictly the young guys. I think it's everybody who's in the building to make sure that they understand the things that they say, to make sure that as the cameras are there for a week, they don't forget that the cameras are there, because that can happen too.
Good point.
People suddenly get comfortable and say things that they really will regret and can't take back. But as much as I would imagine you try to prepare a group for that, how can you? They're
Typically when
time.
teams get mic'd up outside of Hard Knocks, because I've seen everything and I've been mic'd up an awful lot, you only got a handful of guys that are equipped to be microphone and understand the gravity of NFL films being around you and realizing what your words say. Also, we see guys who are mic'd up all the time that we know they're mic'd up because they're talking an awful lot more than what they would normally do. So now when you're trying to put this team together, they only have a couple team leaders. Why? Because they're a bad team. So you just make the older guys the team leaders. So now they have these younger players they're trying to implement. So who is really camera ready? And you don't know that in this experiment with the Browns.
One other part of this, the part about Hard Knocks that pulls on heartstrings, it's some of the most famous parts every season, is when the coach cuts the players, when they do the roster cut downs. As a coach, I would imagine that is one of the most personal moments you have, one of the most emotional moments you have, certainly with some guys, maybe with all guys. What's just your general thought on the fact that that is mandatorily shared as part of Hard Knocks?
I think it's horrible. Whenever you're bringing someone in and saying, look, we're changing your life, and your dream is over here. It may not be over in the league, but in terms of this opportunity, you're not good enough. And a lot of these guys have never experienced that in their life.
First time.
They've been the best at everything they've done up until that point. So it's a dramatic shift for them. And you want to be sensitive to that. You want to make sure that you can give them ideally some feedback that can help them in the next opportunity. And then when you throw a camera in there, it could change that interaction.
Coach, sounds like you love the idea.
I think it's great. I'm do Hard Knocks from my house.
I love it. I sit there with a gigantic bowl of I can't wait.
Yeah.
I get it's great drama, and it's your point about Jameis. If you're a casual, not you, but the generic you, if you're a casual or even a non-interested football fan, it can pull you in. I understand why the league likes it. For the individual teams and human beings involved, I get why it's a tough thing to be a part of.
Of course. All right, Coach, we'll see you a little bit later in the show. Coming up, Steven Jackson will join us to break down the Celtics and the Cavs. That's next. First things first. Welcome back to First Things First. NBA champion and all-around great dresser, Steven Jackson is here. Oh, look what he's wearing.
Travel day, baby. Travel
yeah,
day.
it is.
Travel day.
Might as well be comfortable from start to finish.
You, brother. How are
Happy to
you?
be back here.
Including the television
It's been a
part
great
of your
week.
travel
Let's
day.
finish on a strong note.
This has been fun.
Well, thanks for the pep talk.
Professor Action Jack, man.
We've loved having you here. We're all smarter for
Thank you so much.
Fashion-wise also. Don't make plans Saturday night, Action Jack. Is that what we're calling you now?
Yeah, I'm cool with that, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm cool. That's one of my
Well,
names.
Nick says. The NBA's already got some plans for you. Game 3 between the Celtics and the Cavs from Cleveland. Vegas has confidence in Cleveland, listing them as 6.5-point favorites. The Celtics have struggled on the road this postseason, going 1-4. Here's what Ty Lue had to say about being down in this series.
We know what it takes. I mean, they won 2 games on their home floor. They've been playing well all playoffs. They're 9-0 on their floor. So, we understand that. But, now we got to come home and take care of our business on our home floor.
The stage is set for, all of us to do something spectacular. Why not come out and play hard? Everybody's saying we're playing with house money anyway. So why not come out, with the energy level that we need and try to do something special.
You don't think the Celtics are playing with house money? Is that what you're poo-pooing?
Man, I just love hearing those young guys talk. by just knowing as the stage is set for y'all to do something great. Why not go out there and play hard? That's it in a nutshell for Boston. But Cleveland, I don't think LeBron's going to let them lose Game 3. I just feel like he's going to be spectacular like he always is and force it. A lot, they play well at home. Hopefully JR hit a couple shots. Hopefully Kyle hit a couple shots. But, I think just the king and being the Superman he is, I think he can will Game 3 by himself.
Before we get to the LeBron part of it, what do you think of what the Celtics have been able to do up to this point? The Celtics in this playoffs being a pick-em basically in round 1, a heavy underdog in round 2, and a heavy underdog in round 3.
Well, it's just special. We always talk about the coaching, but I want to give some credit to the players. Being able to lock in after losing both of your star players, especially at the first game of the season, to not buckle. And you have young guys on this team. You have young guys that's never really been through this grind. So for them to be able to react the right way, to not get frustrated, and to still play well, being led by a young guy, I think it's special. Like I said, we give a lot of props to the coach, but we have to give a lot of props to these players for being able to live in the moment.
You have to give the players the credit, and also their top 3 scorers, not only adjusting during the regular season, but in the playoffs, they've averaged more points, 6, 5, and 3 more points than they did during the regular season. So as the situation got more strenuous, as they played against better teams, as the hype and pressure goes up, they have played their best basketball of the season. So you have to be excited about what they've done individually, their overall basketball development, and the stage has been set. For me, I can't wait to see them when their 2 stars return. With these other young players, what type of offense will they run, and how good this team will be.
If it's the same team.
Well, I mean, 1 or 2. It's going to be this team minus maybe Rozier being traded somewhere else, but it's going to be worth the price of admission.
Stephen, we talk a lot about how the Celtics have played on the road this postseason. They've been great on the road the regular season. They were the best team in the East on the road in the regular season. Tell me a little bit about what the difference is.
Well, one win on the road in the playoffs, it says a lot how hard it is to win on the road. This when your star players come into play. When you win games on the road, you need that star player, that max player guy that can get those buckets and walk teams down at the end of the game.
Regardless of the crowd.
Regardless of the crowd, you have that one player that is better, or probably the first or second best player on the court, and when it comes down to it at the end of the game, he can get you a shot or he can get somebody else a shot, and that's what they don't have right now. Well, they didn't have that, but these young guys are stepping it up as a group. It's not just one guy. It's the whole group stepping up together and playing for each other shows, how those guys have been so successful at home.
And listen, I think one of the reasons that the Celtics have been able to have, because I'm not surprised by the defense. I'm surprised by the offense. They're the best defense in the regular season. They've been one of the best defenses, second best defense, I believe, this postseason. That doesn't surprise me. The offense getting progressively better since Kyrie's been out is what is initially shocking. But I do wonder if there is this, obviously it'd be better with Kyrie, but I wonder if there is this benefit to not having Kyrie. There is no focal point of the offense. You don't have to worry about, if I don't take this shot, am I going to get another one for 6 minutes? Like they have the belief that I can go good shot, great shot, because the ball's going to find me again, because we haven't, it's not like everything's running through Tatum or everything's running through Brown. They don't have that. When you have the star player out there, obviously it's a benefit, but you also know the offense is going to run through him. They don't have that. I feel like that's one of the reasons Rozier, Horford, Tatum, Brown have been better in the playoffs offensively than they were in the regular season.
Well, I think it was good that Gordon Hayward wasn't there, because with Kyrie, the ball still moved. I think Rozier and Kyrie played well together. Getting Kyrie off the ball, letting them play the 2 spot, and just worrying about scoring. They played good together when Kyrie was playing, and the ball still moved. Guys still got their shots. It's going to be different with Gordon Hayward, excuse me. Gordon Hayward in, because he hasn't been in this offense yet, so they're still trying to figure out how he's going to fit in. But with Kyrie, the ball moved well, and I think it still will when he come back. It's just the new guys, it's going to be hard to see how they're going to fit in
it's
this
about
offense.
style.
Yeah.
You talk about having a superstar in the lineup. It's not who the superstar is. It's what's the style of that superstar. Kyrie's style is he's going to pat the ball 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 before he shoots it. And that's his thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what the staff did when they went to Rozier at the point guard, they went to more motion. All right? They passed the ball more, they cut more, and they relied on that. So are the Celtics better without Kyrie? No.
Not at all.
They had to change because in these tight games and in those road games, you need someone like Kyrie to be able to take over, especially at the end of games.
So Ty Lue said we know what it's going to take to get this team back into this series. Can you just tell us exactly what he means?
He means win game 3.
Okay.
He means we're going home.
At any cost?
At any cost, we're going to win game 3. We're not going to be the team that got goons. We're going to be the goons this game. And that's they all figured on. Hopefully he'll throw Perk out there and mess the game up a little bit. I would love to see that because he's from around my way. But they need to be the more physical team. They need to come out and hit first. I think shots will fall at home.
I don't think they're going to throw Perk out there, contrary to your request.
I'm just speaking.
But there is a guy that I don't think you'd classify as a goon, but a guy whose effort at times has been infectious for this team, and that's their lone rookie, Cedi Osman. That guy, they played some of their best ball during the regular season when he was forced into the rotation. He and Calderon, oddly enough. Calderon is not good enough defensively to deal with these young guards on Boston. But when you've got Rodney Hood is the opposite of what you need in this series. A softer player, a weaker player, and a guy who, if his shot's not falling, doesn't seem to be intrigued at all on the defensive end.
Too laid back.
Exactly, almost casual. Cedi knows he's at a talent disadvantage, knows he's younger than he should be playing in a playoff game next to LeBron James. So he is diving for every loose ball. He is always trying to pick up his teammates. It is not coincidental that the first guy to greet LeBron after every game winner this year has been Cedi, because he is like that glue team guy. I bet he gets in the game in game 3.
I'm going to tell you something. If you're a Cavs fan and you're waiting on Cedi Osman, or he's part of the damn storyline, like, we got problems.
Serious problem.
I mean, he's averaging a minute.
No, he hasn't. He's been totally out of the rotation.
Yeah, like, okay, that's the level of if the Celtics are playing with house money and the Cavs are waiting on Cedi. Yeah, okay.
Monopoly money.
Yes. They got to win game 3 to get back in the series.
You're not the least bit concerned. You have no doubt that no matter what, whether they don't play a lick of defense, LeBron is going to come out and make sure they win this game.
No, I'm not guaranteed, because I love the mindset of Boston Celtics. I love the mindset. You heard what Jalen just said. The stage is set for us to do something great. Why not live in the moment? I think when you have young guys that understand what's at stake, when they understand the situation, by him talking like that, you don't hear rookies talk like that, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals. So the focus that they have is scary going to Cleveland.
But this has the same implication, Jenna, that Game 7 against the Pacers did for the Cavs, except for they can't advance around with a win. Their season's over with a loss. This is the second elimination game they've played in this postseason. No team in NBA history's come back 131-0. Teams are when up 3-0 in a playoff series. Like, the Cavs know their season is officially on the line for the second time, and they're at home, and they're rested. I think for all those reasons, that's why I believe everyone thinks the Cavs will win that game. But it doesn't mean the Celtics are drawing dead.